The slow collapse has already started. It's 2028. Your salary hasn't changed in years, but your grocery bill definitely has. Your rent auto-adjusts every single 12 months automatically without even your landlord being involved. Imagine, your job title now says AI assisted. You train the system that slowly replaces you. Your bank app pushes you notifications after notifications. The new digital dollar savings feature is now available in the form of stablecoins, AI assisted. Imagine 2028, your pension fund just rebalanced into inflation protected sovereign debt, accessed immediately via your Fed stablecoin. Now, nothing dramatic happened. No crash, no emergency broadcast, no market limit down opening in an apocalyptic scenario. You still have your Netflix, you still have your Uber Eats, you still see record stock prices in the markets all around the world and across your screens, and yet somehow something very quietly has changed. You are poorer. You're more precarious, you're more unstable, and you're more unsure about the future. Now, you can't point to the day that it happened, but you know it did happen. It's because there wasn't a crash per se, but your standards of living have completely changed, your stability in the world has completely altered, and what you know about your place in society vis-a-vis AI's place in society looks nothing like it did only 2 years ago in 2026. Now, this isn't a crash. Crashes are loud. This is even worse. It's a slow bleed, it's a slow burn, it's a slow collapse, and the mechanism is already in motion. Liquidity contractions are going to force AI labor displacements. Stablecoin dollarization is going to come, asset prices are going to be distorted, there's going to be stealth QE, there's going to be currency erosion, and the rich are going to get richer and you're going to get poorer. The same way it always happens. Most people think recessions start with layoffs, but they don't. They start when the liquidity tightens in the systems and the prices remain elevated. And the same amount of capital is going after fewer amounts of goods and consumers are stretched at the margins. They start when your wages start to stall, when house prices don't fall, when your wages don't buy as much bread as they once did. They start when the artificial intelligence models compresses labor bargaining power and unionization to the point that the economy can't adapt fast enough and workers have no place in it. They start when governments prepare QE before admitting weakness, when they understand that the job losses are coming but have nothing to do with it. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly where we're going and what the future could hold. Because the recession doesn't always look like the recession. We're told the economy is resilient, but the job revisions actually tell us the truth. The manufacturing PMIs below 50s, the ISM's in contractionary territory for over a year, credit card delinquencies back to 2010 heights, small business optimism failing, consumer optimism failing, inflation expectations rising, fears of war rising, small businesses suffering to get financing, all of the hegemonic entities and monolithic companies concentrating power and reducing your bargaining power as a worker. Real wage growth not growing at all. Fiscal deficits above 6% of GDP. Outside of a wartime setting, you can't make this stuff up. We're not in war and yet we're running wartime budgets. We're not paying down the debt and the interest burden is getting higher and higher. This is stagnation masked by abundant liquidity. They're able to keep the hamster wheel going faster and faster by pumping the hamster with more steroids. But the hamster's not going anywhere because in 2007, GDP was still positive. In 2000, unemployment was under 4% when the Nasdaq began to unwind, just like we are here now. Recessions begin quietly. They begin stealthily, but they hold no victims and they don't care about your family. The slow collapse phase always feels manageable in these cycles until the leverage cracks, until you can't afford to pay for anything anymore. And today's leverage is different. It's not the subprime mortgages that are going to kill us. It's something else. It's something more insidious, more pernicious. It's something that's altogether more intractable, and we can't get ourselves out of it because government debt is above 120% of GDP. Corporate financing is reaching stretch levels. Consumer credit is saturated. AI compression is coming for your job and for your wage growth. The system is built on expanding credit and expanding nominal income. But AI is a deflationary labor shock, and that tension is destabilizing because AI is coming for all of our jobs. It doesn't matter how advanced your job is. In fact, the more advanced your job is, the more perilous it might actually be for you. In the beginning, we thought it was going to be the highly skilled jobs that could not be automated. But now we're starting to realize that it's actually the most highly skilled jobs that can face quick levels of automation rather than low skilled jobs. Even if the number of job losses is actually overstated by half, the direction is still clear. It's still cataclysmic for a huge swath of workers. White collar roles are going to go first. Coding, gone. Legal drafting, gone. Paralegal, gone. Financial modeling, gone. Marketing, gone. Research, gone. And it's not being hyperbolic, I'm not being alarmist. This is just happening now. You're seeing all of these companies with layoffs and it's only just started. In fact, companies who aren't laying off just are behind the curve. They're not the anomaly. It's just that it hasn't happened yet. Claude Code doesn't sleep. Anthropic doesn't require a pep talk. ChatGPT doesn't require sustenance at lunchtime. It's not just about the productivity, it's about the wage compression. When wage growth slows while debt remains fixed, the defaults are obviously going to rise. The delinquencies on your mortgages, the student loan payments, the car payments. And what is the government doing about it? Nothing. We're sailing into that good night without knowing what to actually do to the amount of workers that are going to be displaced. Consumption is going to slow. Earnings are going to compress. And I don't believe any of this hogwash about the increased productivity from these corporate companies earning more money is going to substitute for the fact that millions of people are going to be losing their jobs. And that's where the QE is going to have to return with gusto. The system cannot allow simultaneous things to happen that I'm going to mention now. High debt, high rates, AI labor disruption, weak growth. They can't allow those things to happen all at the same time. Something has to adjust. Historically, the policy adjusts first. And it's going to leak into things like our major assets, the things that most of us pin our hopes for our retirement on, which is our home prices. Home prices are frozen, but they're not actually healthy. Mortgage rates above 6 to 7%, affordability near record lows, transaction volume falling, real estate agents losing their jobs, prices holding. This is paralysis. It's not a healthy market economy. It's not ebullient. It's not buoyant. So don't believe the hype when it says that the local house down the street sold for X amount. Try and sell it in a market where people can't get refinanced or where they're not palatable or digestible, the rates to get people inspired to go and take on massive amounts of debts. Make no mistake about it, this is paralysis. In 2006, volumes dropped before prices. In Japan, 1990, they had a massive property bubble. Prices stagnated for years and years before collapsing under the credit stress. Housing is not strong. It's illiquid. Try selling a house when you really need it, when your back's against the wall. It's not a liquid asset. It's not something to pin your hopes on in a time of dire write-down, in a time of dire fire sales. Liquidity under leverage is fragile. How many people are leveraged to the hilt? How many people have to take on unbelievable debt loads to be able to even afford a place of their own under this American dream or this English dream or this European dream? Mortgage delinquencies rising. Regional bank credit exposure, rising. Banks failing, happening. Commercial real estate refinancing, under stress. Because that's another place where the pressure is going to leak. And that's where they're going to use the opportunity of a crisis to issue stablecoin. Stablecoin dollarization is quietly rewriting the monetary system. And if you're not aware of it, you need to get to know. Because stablecoins actually already now settle trillions annually. And the stablecoin is going to be what actually keeps the American empire going for longer. USDC, USDT, emerging markets are increasingly using stablecoins for savings. If you go and ask a man in Peru, would you rather have a USD stablecoin or your local Peruvian bolivar? He's going to choose the stablecoin all at once. The Genius Act is going to allow eventually for interest to be bared or borne on these stablecoin assets, which means a huge flood of available money into US treasuries, which means even more financing for the US machine, the military industrial complex, kicking the can down the road a little bit more. But what most people are not talking about is how bank funding is going to shrink, how treasury demand is going to shift, how banks are going to be now a direct competitor to the United States federal government and the Federal Reserve. Do you even need banks in that system when the actual relationship between the primary dealers and the banks has always been about servicing the government debt, making sure the government runs smoothly and sending capital out into the economy? Well, this model completely changes it. Deposit bases eroding at banks is going to lead to liquidity problems if the government doesn't treat this properly. And fragility is going to obviously invite that intervention, which means QE. QE is going to come, it's going to be probably under another acronym, another name, but it's going to come back with alacrity. The slow collapse phase is when the monetary power shifts quietly under the surface and the stability completely changes. But does that mean anything for the normal person on the street trying to make an average wage, or trying to invest in the stock market, or trying to trade their way into wealth? Well, CPI prints don't measure the reality. Your grocery bill does. And the CPI that the government prints is not indicative of what you're paying weekly, monthly, yearly, and the increases. Food inflation cumulatively is actually up to 30%. Rent inflation cumulatively is actually in the regions of 30 to 40%. Healthcare insurance costs up, way above CPI. Real wages barely catching up. The actual levels of inflation, true inflation, is what's creating instability around the world, political instability. It happened the same in the 1970s, in the 1930s, in the 1950s. Persistent inflation leading to monetary regime shifts. Weimar Germany, currency erosion leading to destabilization, leading to the Nazi Party. Argentina, the same thing. Zimbabwe, the same thing. Britain, the same thing. All of these countries all around the world. The Fed's balance sheet has expanded an ungodly amount. 800 billion in 2008 to nearly 9 trillion at its peak, with projections for it not to shrink anytime soon. Yeah, QT obviously reduced some of it, but not enough. The facilities still remain. They're still pumping out money to all of these organizations. They're still buying mortgage-backed securities, even though we don't need them. Freddie and Fannie Mae are IPOing on the stock market. You can't make these things up. Liquidity never really truly left. There is no fiscal discipline. There is no fiscal prudence. There is no lack of fiscal incontinence. The liquidity is still there. It never actually leaves. It just pauses in the system. Because QE never died. QE never went away. QE is not dead. The bank term funding program, buy the bloody dip, whatever it's called, the swap lines, the different acronyms, the TINA mantra, reserve repo drawdowns, swap lines all around the world, treasury issuance coordination, Japan, Bank of Japan and the Federal Reserve, all of these things. These are the liquidity spigots. These are the valves where the liquidity comes from. And none of them ever went away. They still stayed there. They're all still there right now, eroding your future, eroding your currency, eroding your purchasing power, and convincing you that everything's all right because the government agencies are telling you that CPI is a paltry 3%. But the system is lying. The system is too indebted to tolerate a prolonged contraction in credit. Interest expense now rivals military spending. Debt financing and debt refinancing waves are exploding. AI is going to compress those incomes, and recession pressures are going to encourage stimulus to come back, which means even more indebtedness, which means even more of a race to the bottom, which means even higher asset prices, a higher hurdle rate for young people to get onto the property ladder and to get out into the real world without being suffocated by debt. Stablecoin migration is the only way to keep the American government funded. The conclusion has to be mechanical. It always is. And the business of government is to keep government going. The business of politicians is to keep politicians well fed. QE has to return in that scenario, not because of ideology, not because they want to save the system, but because of the math. That's all it is. Saving their own institutions, saving their own shirts, saving their own 401ks, saving their own portfolios. And where is that expressed first? Obviously, it's expressed in the equity markets, but it's also expressed very quickly in the options market. Just look at long-dated convexity in commodities, in gold, in silver. When the downside volatility is suppressed, but long-tail upside hedges are bid, institutions are not chasing the hype. They're hedging regime transition. 2008, what happened to gold? It bottomed before QE won. 2020, what happened? Gold surged before stimulus scale actually became clear. Option traders, they always price the mechanism. They see what's going to happen down the line. They price the risk out into the future. They see what the skew is. They see what the curve is saying, and they position accordingly. They see the recession risk. They see the regime shift. They see the political reversal. They see the currency erosion. They see the debasement. But most importantly, they see what's going to happen down the line to save the system before the headlines even confirm it. And they price it in, and the options change prices. That's why spot now leads price. Price does not lead spot. Oh, let's take a breath. But the most important part of this discussion, if it's even a discussion or a diatribe or a monologue or a soliloquy, is the dollar trust question. Foreign central bank gold holdings, what's happening? Multi-decade highs. Huge trust erosion in the dollar and treasuries. Debt to GDP about 120. I mean, do you blame them? Persistent fiscal deficits, which is the government's fiscal deficit is basically the private sector's boon. The private sector is benefiting from all the fiscal deficits, which is why you see the stock market at highs, even though it's unsustainable in terms of federal debt. But the interest rates are always climbing on the interest payments on the debt. Inflation, financial repression, fiscal dominance, quantitative easing. Stablecoins are going to accelerate offshore dollar usage, and it has to happen. The euro dollar market is an amazing system that developed to create dollars outside of America. The stablecoin system allows that to proliferate and to persist, but it has to combat AI wage compression, labor compression, unionization compression, lower collective bargaining. This is not a collapse tomorrow, but it is a slow erosion, and the erosion normalizes the decline. That's what makes it so dangerous, when it becomes normalized, when the public expects it, when the public doesn't fight against it, when the public no longer looks towards revolution, but just looks towards subjugation and accepting their plights. Inevitability. Always inevitability. It always comes down to this, because history has proven that the inevitability is probably what strikes. Not the new regime, not the revolution, but just the resumption. Now, the mechanism is always clear. It always has been. But in this regime shift, the AI revolution, which is real, it's real, guys. AI is going to reduce the labor bargaining power. The reduced wages are going to have to slow consumption. The slower growth is going to have to pressure governments to initiate stimulus. The stimulus is going to have to weaken the currencies all around the world. And the stable coins are going to come in there and make use of a crisis. Remember that famous phrase? Never waste a crisis. When QE returns, asset prices are obviously going to distort even wider. House prices are going to go out of whack. Stock markets are going to reach all-time highs. Cost of living is going to remain elevated. And you're going to wonder why that sweet dollar doesn't buy you what it used to buy you but a year ago. And that's what's going to lead to the confidence and the sentiment eroding completely. This isn't just about one country. It's not just about America. Yes, if America catches a cold or sneezes, the whole world catches the bubonic plague. We know that. But it's not just about one country. It's not just about one economy. It's about a leveraged global system colliding with a technical revolution that the world have never seen before. Systems built on perpetual debt expansions do not shrink without resistance. They're not going to go out with a whimper. They're not going to go out with a bang, but they are going to put up a fight. And what's the fight? The number one fight is inflating. Inflating the debts away, inflating the assets, eroding the currency, eroding the denominator. Or they completely fracture and end in revolution. And you can see where the pressure leaks and how it leaks in different regimes all around the world. But most of it always leaks through currency debasement. It leaks through asset inflation. It leaks through policy regime changes, through institutional guidance, through window dressing, through QE, through TINA, through all of these other mechanisms to keep the juggernaut going. It leaks through suppressed volatility to the upside of asset prices. The slow collapse never ever feels dramatic until it does. And by that time, it's too late. And that's what I've got to say, really, because monologue over, diatribe over. My name is Justin Banton. This is the House of Trade. Ciao for now. Stay safe out there.